Hey everybody, thanks for being here. I want to welcome you to the 9 secrets to doubling your click rate in half the time. I'm Mike Connolly, and I'd like to introduce your presenters here this evening. First, this is Clare Kirlin, head of copy at Infusionsoft, proud mom of an 8-year-old daughter. She's also the winner of the B2B Marketing Exchange Killer Copy Award, and, if I may say so, an awesome collaborator. My name is Mike Connolly. I'm a freelance direct response copywriter, having done that since 2010, and I founded Strategic Copy. I've written for over a dozen Infusionsoft implementation accelerators and small businesses in over 50 different industries. So thank you for being here. I think you've made a great decision. Before we begin, I just want to address the fact that you're all here for copywriting, for some way to get your message out quicker and more effectively. And the truth is, you can do that a lot of ways. I mean, you can go out and you can crowdsource it. Companies like our friends Writer Access, who are here, and lots of other companies that will let you do that. Infusionsoft supplies templates with your campaigns. You can go out and buy templates, such as Digital Marketer, Machine. ClickFunnels has script funnels, funnel script, and then there's Scriptall. There's all of these alternatives that you have out there. Also, if your budget and your requirements dictate, you can hire a writer. You can bring a writer in-house. So why would you want to come and learn about how to get your copy done faster? Well, there's some situations where if you're using templates, you sort of have a square peg in a round hole situation. Anybody ever experienced that? It's like it 80% fits, but it somehow just doesn't quite resonate with your market. Or you may be the one that's tasked with writing the copy. Sometimes that's how it is. You're the one that knows your business better than anybody, and you have that vision. You're the one that can write it better than anyone else. So I think we're going to have something to offer you no matter what. And what I'd like to say is that if you're good with that, let's go ahead and get started. We have a lot to cover in 60 minutes, so we don't want you to be distracted by trying to catch every little detail, write down everything on every slide. And so at the end of the presentation, we're going to have a link for you where you can go and get this whole slide deck, plus some other cool resources that will help you expand on what we're going to be offering you and presenting for you this evening. So please do yourself a favor, turn your cell phone off, turn your Facebook, Twitter, whatever, let it go for the next 60 minutes, because I really think that what you can learn here could make the difference between being stuck and scaling up in your business. As the great entrepreneur, copywriter, and marketing consultant Dan Kennedy said, if I can get the slides to change here, the ability to organize words that motivate people to buy is a superpower. And so our mission tonight, Claire and I hope to give you the ability to move in that direction with your messaging so that you can grow your businesses. A couple of quick housekeeping items before we get started. If you would, please be sure to rate us in your Icon app and hold your questions until the end. If we have time after the presentation, we'll be happy to answer them. If not, Claire and I are happy to hang out with you and answer as many questions as we can. Sound good? Shall we get started?
Hey, Mike, just so you know, when I left upstairs, Kirlin was still talking away, so I think you'll have lots of people watching. She did.
Okay.
She finished?
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be co-presenting with Mike. We've co-presented a couple of times here, and every time I'm with him, I even learn something new. So you guys are in for a real treat tonight. So 3 things that I want you to leave with and go back and be able to do later this week, early next week. The first is to be able to plan and produce your copy twice as fast as you're doing today, however fast that is. Secondly, we don't just want to teach you to write cool copy or good sounding copy. We want you to write copy that converts and drives revenue. So we're going to teach you how to write relevant headlines that your readers can't resist. And last of all, you all have really awesome products and services to sell. We want to teach you tonight how to differentiate those products and services from everything else on the market. So with that, if I asked you guys, do you want to go on a vacation? What might your answer be? Yes. Might you have another question for me? Thank you. Where are we going? Makes it a lot easier to agree to something if you have an end in mind. Unfortunately, this is a mistake that I see a lot of businesses make, surprisingly, and it's not just inexperienced writers who do this. It's actually something that I've seen massive Fortune 1000 companies forget to do in their copy, and that is to set a destination. Give your reader somewhere to go and give them a reason to go there. So, right, if I'm going to hire a new employee and just tell them, hey, welcome to the company, how am I going to assess their performance in 60 days or 6 months? I can't. I didn't give them somewhere to go or something to do, right? We've heard probably, a lot of you have heard that your copy is your online salesperson, so give it a job. Give a job to every single asset that you create. So how are you going to decide what that is? Well, we have a set of questions here that I used to call the golden questions until somebody corrected me and said that rhodium is actually higher value than gold. So I call them the rhodium questions because the value that you're going to get out of asking these questions to frame your copy is that high. So there are 4 of them. First, you got to think through, where did the user come from? People arrive at your website, on your landing pages, at your emails through a lot of different channels, right? So keep in mind where they came from and what their sort of frame of mind is when they get there. Secondly, we want to look at where we're sending them next. Like we said, you want to go on vacation? Sure, but where do you want to send me? Give them a place to go. Give them a reason to go there. Why should they read the copy? Sounds obvious, but we'll see some examples that fail to do that. And then last of all, think about everything else that's competing for their attention instead. This is an ad that I think does an excellent job of answering those questions. It's obvious to me that whoever sat down to write this ad thought through these ahead of time. Where did the user come from? Well, this is a Facebook ad. And you can tell the writer thought through that because the average person reads about 5 words a second, and a second is just about how much attention I'm going to give to this ad to decide, to evaluate whether I want to read on or not. That's why there's a 4-word headline that tells me exactly what they're trying to do and exactly who they're talking to, right? Why should I read this copy? Well, people buy away from pain generally. They buy to avoid some kind of a negative outcome. So if you read that first sentence in the text, why do women need to invest differently? You can see exactly how they're agitating my pain a little bit, because the fact of the matter is that I don't invest differently right now. So this is going to get me thinking about whether I should and what the cost is to not doing so. Where do they want me to go next? This is really, really important. They want me to visit a landing page. More on that in a second, but keep that in mind. And then last of all, what else do I want to do? I want to scroll through my news feed, and I want to see what my friends are doing, and I want to see photos and videos and everything else that you get to see on Facebook, all that wonderful content and those thousands of words on my screen. But this writer did a really good job convincing me that I should probably read this copy instead. They had a destination in mind. They had an objective. When they sat down, they wanted a persona like me, and persona is something that we'll cover later in this presentation, not to create an account, not to talk to a rep, not to make a purchase right now. Those are all things they want me to do eventually. Right now, they're just trying to get me to go to the account landing page. So everything drives to that single call to action. Once I get to the account landing page, it starts over. The writer has to think through a new set of questions. Where did I come from? Now what do they want me to do? Now they want me to take that next step. So you can see how every single asset in this funnel has a specific job to do. Here's an ad that doesn't do such a great job of it. I don't think that the writer thought through this very well. Where did I come from? A news site. So, okay, it does a good job. It's bright, it's colorful, it gets my attention. I'll look at it. But beyond that, I don't really have a reason to read this copy. It's not telling me what I can save on. It's not even telling me who's providing the savings, who ran this ad. I don't know what brand or store this is. It certainly isn't telling me where to go next. Savings, I could join a subscriber list. I might be downloading a mobile coupon app. I don't know. If you're not telling me where to go, why am I supposed to go there? How am I supposed to get there? And then last of all, what else do I want to do? I want to read my news story. If the writer had thought through these things, then the ad might look a little something like this. Well, it might read a little something like this. It wouldn't look like this because they would run it through a graphic designer first, which I didn't do. So graphic designers, avert your eyes. But if they had thought through why I should read this copy, they might have given me a compelling reason. They might have told me what I'm going to get as a result of interacting with this copy, right? They might have actually given me a call to action. Oh, okay, you want me to go shop on your website. That makes sense. I want to go do that. You're telling me, you're giving me instructions. And then last of all, if they had told me who they are, which, sorry, Fry's, but I'm a Fry's customer. I shop there. This ad is being served to me during the busy holidays. If I had known that was who was trying to offer me savings, I would have been pretty inclined to read the copy, right? I shop there. I want to save money at my usual grocery store. So another simpler way to think of it is this. Your reader is a swimmer in the ocean, and there's a shark in the water barreling right at your reader. And your job is to get the reader out of the water, right? Get them to step away from their pain, to buy away from their pain towards your solution. But what you have to keep in mind is there are 5, 10, 20, 100 other people who are standing next to you on the seashore also shouting at your reader. So how are you going to get them to listen to you, to follow your instructions? They need to be clear, they need to be simple, they need to be relevant. So, lightning round, quick game. All of these writers sat down to create subject lines for their emails, but I think one of them forgot the rhodium questions. Any ideas on who might have forgotten the rhodium questions when they wrote their email subject line? Which email subject line doesn't really provide me with clear instructions on what to do? Peter Cottontail, right? If I say, hey, Mike, do you want to save $1,500 on car insurance, or what does it make $1,500 a week from your car? Pretty easy to answer, right?
No-brainer.
If I said, hey, Mike, Peter Cottontail, it's not really easy to act on that information, is it? A little bit confusing. On to you.
All right. Thank you, Claire. So, if you have ever experienced a blank screen and a blinking cursor, or maybe you haven't, but maybe you know somebody that has, okay? Then what I'm about to share with you, I think will help in that situation. I think what happens sometimes, if we're tasked with writing some copy and we sit down and we go, oh my God, I got to get this done in the next 2 hours, I don't even know what to say, and then we get totally stuck. What's happening is our brains are trying to have us do 5 things at once, okay? So if we break this down into 5 separate steps, 5 simple steps, so that you can write more powerful copy in half the time, then this is going to help your whole process a lot. I think it's going to make it go a lot faster. So let's look at each of these steps individually, and then we'll take a more in-depth look at each one. So the first step is you're going to go out and research. You're going to learn all you can about your target customer. The second step is you're going to what we call incubate, and that just means once you've saturated your mind with everything you can about this particular project that you're working on, you just let it go. Go away, go do something else. Third is we sit down and we write. Fourth is we do a reality check. And then fifth, we release it to the world, see what happens, see what the world tells us, and then we come back and start the process over again, because now we know what really works. So the first thing we want to know is who's our customer. We use this thing called an avatar. You've probably heard of that. And Claire's going to be talking about a profile. This gives us as clear of an idea as possible as to who it is that we're trying to benefit with our offer. That's the place to start. And then we look at, okay, so what is it that we have to offer? What's the core idea about this service or product that we have? We get very clear on the features and the benefits. If we're making claims and promises, we need to have all the proof, right? If we're making an offer, we've got to be very clear exactly what that offer is. And then if there's a guarantee, we need to be able to do that so we can reverse any kind of sense of risk that your prospect may have. And then finally, as Clare pointed out, it's just critical to know where you're going. What's your destination? What's that call to action? So all of this information, you start by gathering it up. You're not even writing yet. You're just gathering all that up. That's phase one. Second is we let it go. Go get something else done, do another task, sleep on it, walk the dog, play some golf, whatever. Get your mind off of it. Because as we know, our subconscious mind is about where 90% of our power is. So let that do the work for you. Release it, come back to it later. Now, you've been away from all that research. Block out the time. Cut off all the distractions. Set a timer if you like. Pull out your research, have your templates ready, and then outline it. Just simply by outlining what it is that you're about to do, you're about half done. Now all you need to do is just put a little flesh on those bones, right? You've got all that done, you're ready to roll. Just let your inner child out. Just be totally crazy, get all your ideas out on the page. As a very famous, extremely successful copywriter named Clayton Makepeace has said, sometimes he gets to this stage, he'll close his eyes, put his fingers on the keyboard, and just let it rip. So this is the point in time where you just say, all right, let's go crazy. Just let it all out. Trust that it'll be okay, because now the adult gets to step back in. Your inner child is given the very best, and now the adult says, okay, where are we going to cut this out? Where does it not make sense? What doesn't need to be in here? Where's the logic? How's the spell check? All the basic stuff. Do all of that in this stage right here, and it frees you up to not have to worry about it when you're doing the creative part. So I like to edit in stages, do spell check, consistency, tone, understanding, what it is that you're offering your prospect to make sure that flows through in your message, and then cut everything out that doesn't need to be there. Every single word that you write has to justify its existence. Otherwise, you're bogging down the process. You're just going to confuse your prospect. Don't fall in love with what you've written. If you need to cut something out, let it go. If you feel better, just copy and paste it somewhere else. Use it later. Read it out loud. By reading it out loud, you will hear how to make it conversational, how to make your copy, sort of like you talk. That works. And then have someone else read it out loud too, if you can. When they seem to be confused about something, that's a good indicator that, maybe there's something there that needs to be cleaned up. And then use some tools. Some of my favorite tools, you can look online for, ways to, there's a type of website that analyzes your copy and tells you if it's readable or not. Ideally, believe it or not, no matter who your audience is, almost 9 times out of 10, anything above a 6th or 7th grade level is too much for your reader. So you want to keep it down, keep it really simple. Even the smartest people in the world relate to something told simply and clearly. So good website for this is readable.io. That's one of my favorites. Power Thesaurus for using a thesaurus. And then just knowing, in the last step here, what we're going to do is go to our test and tweak stage. This is where we're going to we're going to go back and see, once we've put it out there, published it, what are the things that our market is telling us? And things we can test include offers, headlines, leads, subheads, bullets. Why do we test? We just went to all this work to get this done. Well, as you can see here, sometimes you might have guessed that, hey, adding images to the text would have worked. Well, no, in reality, text gets a much better conversion rate. We might have guessed that giving a discount would get a better conversion rate than offering a special feature, and nope. See what happened to my slide here? It's actually the feature that got the better conversion rates. Would you guess that a concept drawing versus a picture of a real person would get a better conversion rate? Well, in a test that I was running here, We actually had twice the results with the concept image. Would have guessed it would have been the person. A great tool to use to develop your skills in this is a site called behave.org, where you can go and test your mettle against different versions of pages. So you can also split test in your Infusionsoft. And in the resources that we'll provide for you at the end of the presentation, there's a guide to how to do that with your Infusionsoft. So again, the 5 simple steps, I think this will really help you in getting your copy written clearly and quickly. Let's look at secret number 3, and that is how to find copy in things that your prospects are already saying. I like to look in testimonials, blog comments, forums. I recently was asked to write a sales letter for the Infusionsoft Implementation Accelerator, and it came out that it looks like it's going to be pretty good, but the first place I went to find out, okay, what can we say to really, appeal to people that have the need for this? I mean, it's an amazing product, for one thing. And the first thing I did was I wanted to talk to the sales reps who are actually working with people. That's a great place to look for copy and ideas. Testimonials are awesome. Forums are a great place to look. Amazon reviews. Here's an example of a sequence where we're engaging people to use a product. 12 emails based on testimonials. Each testimonial we turned into a story. Has been very effective. Here's a couple of headlines from the master copywriter Ted Nicholas, where you can see he took some testimonials and turned those into headlines. And again, same copywriter used a customer support message that had, some real impact and turned into a good headline. So there's some ways to get copy from what your clients are telling you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. And thanks for the reminder to test, because some of us are guilty of assuming that conventional wisdom is correct when in fact it often isn't in any given situation. So in every one of these presentations, there's always at least one person who's here hoping to leave with that single magic formula that's going to transform the copy and make it really easy and magical. And I don't have that, so sorry. But what I do have are a couple of different formulas that are going to make it a lot easier and faster to write your copy. I'm not the only one who can say that. There are hundreds of awesome copywriters out there who are sharing their formulas online. So if tonight you went and looked up copywriting formulas, you would find so many cool free resources. You will find so many cool free resources. But for the purposes of today, I want to walk through the anatomy of a high-converting landing page, right? So the first thing we're going to do, like we said, is we're going to set our destination. We're going to give this copy, this landing page, a job. And that job is to persuade ambitious entrepreneurs, like everyone in this room, but who might not know a whole lot about social media marketing, to give us their contact information in exchange for a super high-value asset that teaches them how to do social media marketing. Take a look at what that looks like. There are 3 elements to this headline, and you could write a headline using these 3 elements. The first is a numeral. For some reason, over and over again, we see that when we use a numeral in a sea of letters, it sends conversion rates up. Again, test for yourselves. Conventional wisdom can be wrong, but I see it over and over, and I suspect it's just because the eye is drawn to what's different on the page, and those are the digits on the page. They stand out. Secondly, remember that ad we saw where the advertiser didn't tell us what they were talking about? Sounds self-evident, but make sure you mention the topic of interest to your audience. And then last of all, that pain point. We're talking about making something easier. We're alleviating the struggle people have with social media marketing being something that feels overwhelming and complicated. Remember, we said these are ambitious entrepreneurs. So we're appealing to their desire to belong to the group of winners, of top performers. We mentioned these are tactics used by the most popular social media marketers, and popularity is what they're after. We also mentioned the benefit to taking the action we want them to take. The benefit of consuming this content, of hitting that submit button and downloading the asset, is convenience. It's hard to learn social media marketing. We're going to make it convenient. We're going to make it easy. Always include an image or a thumbnail of the asset or the product or the thing that you're promoting, a video if you can, but at the very least a thumbnail, and then make sure that the lead form is visible from the moment they land on the page. Now, this is great, and a lot of people, this is all they need to give me their contact information and submit the form, but not everybody. So for this template, for this formula, there's a second portion of the page. And this is where we're going to give them a little bit more information. We're going to go a little bit more in depth to try to persuade them if they're not already persuaded. So we talked about the pain they're buying away from. Now we can start to paint a picture of the outcome that they're going to achieve. We personalized the copy a little bit by using their name if we have that information. Again, we appeal to their ambition. We paint the outcome for them. You have such a big following that your top competitor is stalking your Facebook account, trying to figure out how you got so popular. That's going to appeal to somebody who wants to be number one, right? And then we're very specific in the description of what they're going to get. Don't make them guess. They're busy people. Tell them exactly what's inside this thing that they're getting. And then last of all, don't forget to add that final call to action at the bottom of the page. Because if this text convinced me, and I'm like, all right, I'm ready to download this asset, but there's no easy way to do so, I'm going to bounce, right? I have funny YouTube videos to watch. I don't have all day. And then the best part is you can rinse and repeat. Like I said, I write hundreds of thousands of words a year. I have to use templates. If I had to recreate something every single time, I wouldn't get anything done. So once you find some templates that work for you, the cool thing is that you can reuse them over and over again for different assets. So that's secret number 4. Over to you.
Awesome. That is so right. So let's take what Claire just talked about with having these formulas and do a little bit of reverse engineering with your copy, okay? So what I like to do is take a headline that I see that I really like, and you can do this. You know, you'll become a little more aware of headlines and copy from having been here. Sorry, but that's just, you're going to walk out of the room with that now. And so what you can do is you see one that you think, or maybe you know, this thing is getting great results. I wonder how I could do that for my business. What you can do is take some of these headlines, pull them apart, see what's behind them, see what really makes them work, and then apply that to your business. So let's take a few examples. Lose 7 pounds in the next 10 days. I think this could have some appeal for somebody. Let's say, you know, you're planning on going on a vacation, you want to look great on the beach, might be a good idea, right? So what is it that drives that interest? Well, we're offering a desired result in a desirable time period, right? If we apply this to the get-rich-quick crowd, maybe we do something like this, become a marijuana millionaire in the next 90 days. Can you see how that could fit into that framework? So what can you do for your own business? What would you plug in there? Let's look at another one. 3 big lies that drug companies have been telling your doctor. Well, what's the framework behind that? That has some appeal. What works about that? So X number, as Claire said, sometimes using a numeral will really make a big difference. How about it's about something that matters from a trusted authority? Okay, so we combine these things, again, in your own business, what could work? Well, let's say we're in the internet marketing space, right? 3 hidden truths about tripwire offers that internet marketing gurus aren't telling you. Same kind of appeal. Again, how could you use that in your own business? And then finally, this is a headline that was extremely successful, sold millions of dollars of product, ran for years. This was back in the days when they actually used to like feed you stuff on the airplane, right? And so again, how do we break it down? There's a threat that you need to be aware of. There's a little bit of element of surprise in that. I mean, you know, gosh, who'd have thunk? Always thought the airlines would take good care of us. And there's a promise of a solution, okay? So let's say you're in the fitness business. How CrossFit training can make you age faster and what to do instead, right? Do you think that might get some interest? Okay. So how can we tell? You know, a question, I'm going to run to secret number 6 here, is a question that often happens, I think, when we're writing copy is, how do we know? How do I know that something I just wrote is really good enough to publish? Anybody ever felt that way? It's like, you know, I think this is good, but gosh, you know, I don't want to like commit to this thing yet? Can you take a look at this? Well, here's some ways that you can know with a greater degree of certainty. Of course, you always want to test, but here are 3 tests you can use to see, okay, does this have a good chance, or do I have a good shot with this thing? So number 1 is what I call the 6-point headline test. Is it unique, urgent, and useful? Is it specific, relevant, and credible? Okay, so let's take a look at an actual headline and see how the process works. So let's go back to our CrossFit training example. Is it useful? Well, if I'm interested in physical fitness and, kind of want to have a good long life, yeah, I think that could be pretty dang useful, right? Is it unique? Chances are you probably haven't seen a message like this, okay? So there's something unique in that captures your attention. Is there some urgency? Well, there's a built-in urgency if I'm already doing CrossFit training and I'm kind of going, geez, maybe I ought to take a second look at this, right? Is it specific? Well, there's some specificity in here. There's no numbers, there's no statistics, no actual names, places of people. So, we might give it a half a point on that one. Is it relevant? Well, sure. If somebody's interested in fitness, there's a lot of relevance there, right? What about credibility? It's a little hard to say, depends on what the context is here, but I don't really see anybody who's, somebody who I trust and know is really knows what they're talking about, that it really offers a lot of credibility. So I think I probably wouldn't give it a point for that one. But overall, we're probably looking at somewhere around, 4 points or so, 4.5. How is that? Well, the thing is, you don't need to score 6 points on these headlines. If you can get it up to around 4 or 5, you're probably doing pretty well. You have very good odds of success with that headline. A couple of ways to actually kind of tweak the process a little bit further is there's a couple tools I like to use. These are what I call, it's fun. I don't always take it totally seriously, so you need to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. But this headline analyzer at coschedule.com is very good, and I think you'll have some fun with that one. Also, the Advanced Marketing Institute has a headline analyzer, and of course these links will be included in the resources that we have for you at the end of the presentation. So these are a couple of tools that what I will do is use those to bounce ideas, to kind of, it will force you to work through some headlines and come up with some ideas. And sometimes, you may feel like you're at wit's end. Gosh, I've done the best I can do with this. If you just work through a few more iterations and bounce them off these tools, sometimes you'll be surprised at the kind of results you can get. And then finally, this is a trick I learned from Brian Tracy, and I kind of took it one step further. Brian Tracy, the famous sales motivator and sales trainer, motivational speaker and sales trainer, rather, said that if you want a good idea, get out a pad of paper and a pen and sit down and force yourself to write 20 ideas, right? So same with the headlines, only one thing that we can do now is take your headline, copy, paste to the next line, change one word. Do the same thing, changing a phrase, change a key idea. And what'll happen is you can generate a lot of these ideas like really fast. And what will happen often is you'll get surprised. You'll say, gosh, I never would have thought of that. Here's one that really works, just by kind of forcing the process and speeding it up in this way. So I hope that helps. Those are some ways that you can take them apart, put them back together, and know that you've got something that's really going to work.
Awesome, Mike. Thank you so much. So this next secret actually starts out as a story very dear to my heart. In a previous job, I got this email from a boss. So as a new employee who wasn't super familiar with this industry, I was tasked with training our global sales force on a brand new product about which I knew very little. And oh, by the way, the sales manager and the product manager, who were the technical experts on this product, both quit on me. So after overcoming my initial trepidation and reaction to this task, I decided that I need to put on my armor, prepare for battle. right? So here's what I did. This is the most boring slide I will ever show in any presentation. It's the most boring one you'll see tonight, I promise, but it's also the most important, and I want to tell you why. I told myself I needed to take everything that's essential about this new product, and I needed to fit it on one sheet of paper. That was the only way I was going to get up to speed fast enough to train a sales force on how to sell this product and train a marketing team on how to market this product. So these were the questions, the most essential questions that I decided to ask. And we've made this available to you in your downloads after the fact so that you can see exactly what it looks like and fill it out for yourself. And the cool thing about this battle card is I thought I was just going to use this to prepare myself to deliver a training. But what actually happened is as I was walking around the office, I noticed the sales reps had this taped up on their cubicles or tacked up on their cubicles as they were on sales calls because it was such a great, useful, quick reference for everything there was to know about this particular product. And I also noticed that anytime I had to write copy for this product, I was looking at this battle card because it so succinctly laid out all of this research and thinking that there was around this product, and it's so much easier to recognize something than try to recall it from memory, right? So I highly recommend creating this for any and every product or service that you will ever sell. Here's a scenario for you. Let's say that you're in a film class and your professor tells you that you need to write a dialogue, and the characters are brand and market. That might be kind of tough, right? To have a conversation, you need to have people, you need to have personality, you need to have characteristic. And that's what marketing really is it's a conversation between you and the marketplace. But how do you talk to a marketplace? How do you talk to a crowd? You don't. You talk to individuals. Who here is familiar with the concept of a buyer persona or a buyer avatar? Okay, good, about half of you. So if you're getting tired, if you have heard of this and you're getting tired of the idea, that's because it's becoming increasingly popular. Everyone's talking about it in marketing because it's really important. It's a concept that really works. And all this is it's an actual person with a face and a name who represents your ideal customer, your ideal buyer. And you might have one or two of these. You might have more depending on how many products and services you sell. But the important thing is to define who they are and understand what motivates them. This is another term you can look up online, find tons of really cool templates for buyer persona. But you'll have this available in your download, and I recommended this simple layout as a starting point. And what happens if you don't nail your buyer persona? Well, something like this. So I love retro design, and I was scrolling through my Facebook newsfeed, as I tend to do, and I came across this ad, and initially, without reading, just looking at the image, I was like, wow, this is awesome. Where do I get this bathroom? How could I buy this tile that's no longer manufactured? And then digging a little bit deeper, I was really disappointed to find out that this was actually an ad for a mortgage company that was telling me I had bad taste in bathrooms and that the tile I like was ugly. So needless to say, I didn't refinance with that company. Now, a brand persona is something that is a little bit newer. Who's heard of a brand persona or who has a brand persona? Yeah, very few, one or two of you. So if we're developing a characterization or a personification of our buyer, why aren't we doing that for our brand as well? Brand is something a lot of businesses struggle with. And a lot of businesses develop really rich, robust brand guidelines. And I think those are useful and amazing, and I also understand that not every small business has the time or the resources to do it. So how can we achieve that outcome of defining how we speak without necessarily developing something that extensive? Well, I would do the same thing I would do for a buyer. I would identify who represents my brand as an actual person. And I would encourage you to choose somebody who's fairly universally recognizable. And there are two really cool things you can do when you define who your brand persona is. The first is you can outsource copy much more effectively. Because if I hire a freelance writer and I hand them 100 pages of brand guidelines, that's great. But if I tell them, hey, we sound like Ricky Gervais when we talk, that's pretty easy for them to nail that voice right away. Secondly, this helps create consistency in all of the copy that you're writing. It's a great spot check, right? If I'm sitting down to write copy and I pause and I say, is this something Ricky Gervais would say, yes or no? Then that's a really, really great way for me to know if it's consistent with my brand voice. I would encourage you to create as many do and don't examples as you possibly can, at least 10. These are things we would definitely say, and these are things we would never say. These are characteristics that we absolutely possess, and these are characteristics that we stay far, far away from and don't want to be known for. But within that, there's some subtleties as well, right? So at the bottom, you can see I added this tonal scale. And I think of this as like the audio adjustments, right, on a piece of audio equipment, where there's room to slide back and forth a little bit. It's never going to be set all the way to 10 or all the way to 0. In this example, you can see that, yeah, we're mostly on the casual side, but there's a little bit of room for formality in certain channels. So this allows you to nuance that messaging depending on the channel that you created it for.
Awesome. Guys, is this killer? I mean, I don't know if you know. Yeah. So a few times during our kind of practicing, getting ready for this, I've looked at some of the things that I'm learning from Clare here and go, holy crap, I got to get that. I mean, the thing that was supposed to be so boring, the
battle card.
The battle card, right? I'm going, that is so handy just to have all of that information in one place. Anyway, so this has been awesome. We're on to the last secret, number 9, in our big countdown here. So if you know, there's a place, right? And the reason that I want to share with you Mark Twain's wisdom on this is there's a place where there's a benefit of your product that intersects with something that really drives your prospect. And if you can find that place, that will drive sales. That can explode sales. Let's take a look at an example and see how this works. So let's just take Tesla Model S, right? And anybody driven one of these yet, by the way? I haven't yet. All right. How was it, sir? Awesome. All right. So does it really go 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds?
Not mine.
Not yours. Okay.
So,
All right. That's what they advertise. Let's look at how that would affect someone considering purchasing that car, right? So, and just to make this a little bit more interesting, I know I'm going to be overgeneralizing here a little bit, but let's compare men versus women. How does this particular feature affect, the prospective buyer here, right? So let's say to a woman, she may feel that, gee, I really like the fact that I can accelerate quickly. It means I can pull out and safely pass when I need to, right? So to get to the ultimate benefit, what we can do is ask a really simple question. It's, that's cool. Okay, so why does that matter? And it's kind of like peeling an onion. What we find is that we ask that question, we get closer and closer to the truth of what really is driving somebody to make a buying decision. So in this case, we might say, well, that's cool. Safety when passing, why is that important? Well, I feel like I'm protecting my family if my kids are in the car, right? So we can take that a step further and say, well, that's good. I understand that. Why is that important to you? Now, we get to a place where there's some cues that people may not be able to consciously verbalize or recognize that is driving them. But if we really think about these things from our own experience, what we might realize is that she wants to feel like she's a good mom, right? So it's a self-esteem issue. Let's take a look at how this might be of interest to a guy, right? So the exhilarating speed, that's one thing. Okay, cool. Why is that so important? Well, let's face it, maybe you're thinking, gosh, I just picture myself pulling up to a corner, and there's a couple of nice-looking ladies here, and they're kind of looking at me out of the corner of their eye, and, us guys like to impress the ladies, right, so maybe that's what's going on. Okay, well, why is that so important? And again, it may go beyond what we really are able to articulate, but there's a sort of a primal dominance thing going on here, let's say, right? So these are the kind of cues that you can include in your messaging through details, through telling stories, through pictures. Sometimes you don't want to address them head on, but if you address them in some way that is sort of beneath the conscious level, then you can reach people in a way that can really drive results for your copy. Let's take a look at another example. This is actually a website called Delta Protective Services. I highly recommend, by the way, you go check this out. I think this video turned out quite well, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. It's about a 2-minute introduction video to a service that basically they provide protection for properties, mostly commercial type things, right? And so if we looked at a potential buyer for this service, we could maybe break it down into a property manager or a business owner, okay? So for a property manager, without going through the whole string here, ultimately the benefit for him for making a buying decision is job security. I feel like I'm doing a great job, my boss agrees, my job will be there tomorrow, right? For the business owner, maybe it's continuity, knowing that the business can continue without interruption. Having that security of knowing this precious asset that you've been building over the years is being protected. And ultimately, it comes down to peace of mind. So how do we do this in our copy? I'm going to read to you the end of the script here so you can kind of have a sense of how this type of thing can get incorporated without really clubbing people over the head, but can have a very strong impact. So they end it with, we've prevented hundreds of crimes, secured millions in assets, and protected countless celebrities and high net worth individuals. We invite you to join our family of safe, secure, and protected clients and discover what it's like to have Delta Protective Services protecting you, your loved ones, and your property so you can sleep well at night and enjoy all the things that matter most to you. So again, these are the types of things that makes a very strong closing, a very strong appeal. And we're simply discovering it by asking the question, okay, so why is that so important? So folks, that's about all we've got for you here. I hope this has been helpful. Claire is going to, kind of in the spirit of, hey, here's what you're about to learn, here's what you learned, and here's what we just showed you, is going to go through and share with you what we have just experienced here.
That's right. Thanks so much, Mike. So my job here tonight is not to let anyone out of this room until you're totally confident that you can do all of these things, okay? So if right now you don't feel like you can do all of these things, track me down. I'll be here after the presentation. It looks like we might have a few minutes for Q&A because I want all of you to be able to do this. I want you to be able to plan, produce, and publish copy twice as fast as you're doing it today, however fast that is. Secondly, write headlines that convert, that get people to actually take action. And third, be able to go out there and declare how awesome your product or service is and why people should buy it using these 9 secrets. There's one really important thing to remember, which is that this only works if you do, right? You all have fantastic voices, you have fantastic businesses. You got to go out and apply these secrets if you want the world to know about them. So we do have a few minutes for questions. Mike, you had one really cool resource that you had put together, I believe, for our attendees tonight that you wanted to share with them.
Yeah, so if you go to strategiccopy.com/icon17, you'll be able to pick up the slide deck here so you can see some of these lists, checklists, and things, and you can use these on your own as well. There's also a set of resources that will help you amplify and expand what you've learned here tonight. So please feel free to go visit and download those resources.
Thank you. And also, please remember to rate us. We really do value your feedback and want to know how we can make this session even better for next time around. And with that, do we have time for some Q&A? Yep. All right. just in case anyone's wondering, no, I don't actually know where they're serving drinks after this, but we could probably find out for you pretty quickly here. Maybe ask your neighbor.
Yes, you right here. And there's a microphone coming to you right here. Oh, there it is.
Thank you. So I've always had a challenge defining my avatar. I know it's 90% female. I know around the age range. But finding her pain, how do you go about doing that?
You want to tackle that, Claire?
There's this great saying, which is, why guess when you could know? So I was at a conference a couple weeks ago about conversion rate optimization, and every single speaker who presented any kind of a significant breakthrough started by talking to their customers, right? So we want to know who they are. That's the demographics, which you nailed, right? Their sex, their location, their age, their income perhaps. But why they buy, that's something that you can only find out if you go and ask them. And there's a woman named Adele Ravella who does Adele Ravella, and I can give you her website after this, who's a great buyer persona researcher, and she has lists of questions that you can download, and you can actually ask your customers when you interview them to try to figure out what it is they make decisions on, what drives them to search for your product or service, and what ultimately compels them to buy or not.
Yeah, I'd like to just add real quickly, too. Sometimes you may have 2 or 3 avatars, and if they're being a little bit, mixed together, that can be an issue. And then the other thing is the great copywriter Kirlin Cole, who writes in the health promotions field for newsletters. What she will do oftentimes is when she's learning about a product that they're about to promote, she'll invite her friends over who are kind of like in that demographic, and she'll, have food and whatever. It's almost like a Tupperware party, only the deal is she gets to ask you all kinds of questions, and she goes into crazy depth on that. So actually, take somebody out, take them, sit down with, buy them coffee or a drink or whatever is another great way to find out. Kirlin Cole. I think if you just type that in, she's got a website, you'll be able to find her. Or you can ask, I'll get you the resource later. You, sir. Yes, in the blue shirt.
I really appreciate you guys doing this. And my big question is, do you have any resources you can offer or suggest copywriters or copywriting firms for people like me? We're already working 14 hours a day.
For copywriters, yeah. So there's actually a speed writing course. There's probably more than one. But if you look up Clayton Makepeace, he has some methods that teach how to write faster. I assume that's going to solve a lot of problems, right? I'd like to just pay somebody, actually. Yeah. Oh, to do it.
Oh, how do you hire a copywriter? Because you're working 14 hours a day in your business, you don't necessarily have time to write that copy yourself. So where might you find somebody? Is that right? Yeah.
So there's basically 3 levels, right? You can crowdsource it for, kind of filler type content. You can hire in-house. You can bring somebody on full-time. They'll really understand your business. And, then you can use templates and things like that. But somewhere in between that, you need to decide, okay, what's my budget? And probably more importantly is you need to come up with some type of an estimate of what is this going to be worth to have that sales page finally done, to have that sequence finally done. And then you say, okay, 6 months from now, what is that going to mean to my business, and what can I afford in the way of hiring, either a freelancer or somebody in-house? Does that help? Cool. Sir, in the yellow shirt over here?
First, thanks again. This has been awesome. Yeah, just outstanding. We have a multi-sided platform. So, and you alluded to it, where you have more than one avatar. In other words, sort of like an Uber or Lyft. where you actually have one set and then you have another one, the riders and drivers, right? Do you just divide it into two sections and two totally different campaigns? Or is there a formula or something that we could do that would be more appropriate where it's the same people? Because that's the challenge. Is it the chicken or is it the egg that we want to, go first with?
So do the separate groups of buyers ever buy both products, or is one buyer aligned to one product and the other buyers aligned to the other?
They literally can be in both. It's borrowing and lending. It's private lending in real estate, and it's also using private lending. And oftentimes, some of the bigger players, a lot of players actually, will be investors in real estate, but they'll also lend their money. And a lot of the lenders will, in turn, do equity or investments themselves. And so they're constantly going back and forth in uses of each other's. And some of them just stick in one side or the other, by the way.
Yeah, so I would say two things. Keep your buyer personas distinct, but this might actually be a positioning question of how do you solutionize your products so that you're selling different packages, and then you might be selling that package to both different personas, but you're bundling those products and services together, and I'm happy to talk with you one-on-one after this about how you might be able to do that.
Thanks.
Let's see. Let's get somebody in the back here. You? Way in the back? Yeah. I think we have time for maybe one more here, so let's see if this... And we'll stay, by the way, if you guys have questions, please feel free to come up and ask us.
Do you have any tips on editing someone else's writing without crushing their spirit?
You want me to take that? Oh, no. Yeah, so
Do you have any tips on editing someone's writing without crushing their spirit?
Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah. So I think the place to start is to come to an understanding that what I'm going to do is I'm going to administer medicine with a great deal of love, okay? I think you absolutely need to start with that message. And really you are, as a writer or even as an entrepreneur, a business owner, just even in sports or anything, it's like Brian Tracy said, feedback is the breakfast of champions, right? So as much as, yeah, sometimes it's hard on your ego and it's confusing and you go, oh my gosh, how could I have missed that? Or, man, I don't even understand where you're coming from. How do I learn this stuff better? Ultimately, it's a tremendous benefit. It improves their copy. It improves their ability to do what they do. So I don't know if that helps, but that's where I would start is, I'm doing this with love. This hurts me just as much as it hurts you. No, I wouldn't say that. But the point is, you're administering good medicine, and it's really going to be good for them in the long run. And quite honestly, that's how we grow. That's how marketing works, is direct feedback, and it's real critical to be able to be clear and honest on that.
I have a lot to add to that. To Mike's earlier point about finding ideas from your audience, you just gave me a great idea for a blog post, so thank you. I think writers are a sensitive bunch, and it can be really hard to provide feedback without feeling like you're crushing their spirit, depending on the sort of maturity and sophistication level of whose work you're editing. But there are two things that I found really helpful, just tactically speaking, in addition to just making sure that you're bearing in mind that you're doing them a favor, you're helping them ultimately, as Mike said. The first is you need something to evaluate the copy against. So if you're going to go back to me as a writer and tell me this missed the mark, my first question to you is going to be, what was the mark? Did you document that? Was there a brief or an outline or something of some kind that you agreed on ahead of time that identified who are we writing for, what's the outcome we're trying to achieve, what's the tone we're going for, right? What results are we looking for? So you can have something to fall back on and point to and say, hey, this is what we agreed on, this is how I think it falls short. And then also be mindful of the medium through which you provide feedback. I've worked with so many different writers, and they all receive feedback differently. I had one who I found I was redlining a lot of her work, and I was giving a lot of edits and comments, and I found it was much more effective just to sit down and say, here's your first draft, let's workshop this together, and turn it into a conversation versus taking a machete to a piece of paper and cutting it all up, and she received that feedback really well.
Great question, thank you. Guys,
You've
that's
had-
about all we have time for, I think.
Yeah,
Are we,
I think
do we
so.
have time, or are we?
Do we have
we're
one
out?
more?
I think
I'll
we're
tell you
out.
what, you've had your hand up so patiently, so eagerly, so anyone who needs to go, of course you're free to go, but maybe last question, then Mike and I will stick around and answer any others that you have.
First off, thank you. This was an awesome session, so it was really helpful. And I actually have 2 questions, but I think they're pretty quick. The first one you said about getting templates that you like and that you tend to write template. Do you find that that brings monotony so that the user just, they're like, oh, I'm getting the same, it has this, it's different content, it looks, block, 3 bullets, call to action, block, 3 bullets, call to action. Is that tend to be limiting in their engagement? So that's the first question. And then on the brand persona, you had Ricky Gervais up there. Do you recommend that we select public figures as a brand persona? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, so to answer the second question, yes, you want to pick somebody who's high enough profile that anyone who is writing copy for you would recognize who they are. You're not going to publicize this to your audience. This isn't like having a spokesperson or an ambassador. This is just an internal tool you use. So I definitely encourage you to pick somebody who's a public figure, someone that people can immediately understand what their sort of voice is and what they sound like. And then as far as templates, I wouldn't pick a brand. I would pick a specific person with a face and name. And then as far as templates, it depends how long people typically stay in your database. Like if leads are in your database for 6 months, yeah, they're going to get bored of it. If they cycle through your buyer database in 2 weeks, they're likely not going to be seeing that same copy. But absolutely start with it. It's one tool, and then add different templates. So you might have, say, a product demo, and you might have 3 different landing pages or formulas to promote that demo that you sort of cycle through. But it's a starting point, not a finish line.
Awesome. You guys are
How
awesome.
awesome
Thank
is
you
Mike?
for being here.
Thank you guys so much.